What is up, everybody? My name is Adam, otherwise known as Young NBA Analyst. Before this video starts, as I always say, make sure you follow me on my Instagram at Young NBA Analyst. I post a lot of content on there. And make sure to go subscribe to my podcast, listen to my podcast, because I got that going as well. And today's video is going to be the best player in each skill category. But this is not just a simple like scoring, shooting, playmaking, rebounding, and defense and stuff. While those are categories, I got so much more. I got a total of 21 categories. I got a lot of categories, so let's just get right into the video, starting off with scoring. And my pick for the best scorer in the league right now is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is one of the most skilled scorers of all time, if not the most. And there are many candidates for this. And it is kind of a surprising pick given that he also has Harden and Kyrie on the same team. But Kyrie has taken a step back a little bit, and James Harden has taken on a much bigger playmaking role, so he's not scoring as much. So Kevin Durant is still the main scorer. He's still putting up great scoring numbers, and he's just such a skilled scorer that it's hard to put him anything lower than number one. So best scorer in the league goes to Kevin Durant. Three-point shooting, Stephen Curry. I really don't feel like I have to explain this one. He's Stephen Curry. Like, come on now. But the mid-range shooting and mid-range scoring goes to CP3, Chris Paul. I think that he's definitely a very skilled player in mid-range. There are many candidates for this. I think he's a great shot creator. In my opinion, he has the highest basketball IQ of all time. He's a great operator in the mid-range and amazing scorer from the mid-range. There's not much to say about that. He's an incredible mid-range scorer. Moving on to driving and finishing, I got to go with LeBron James. I think no one can get to the basket better than LeBron can. And in terms of finishing, I mean, he's a great dunker. He has a decent layup package. I think finishing around the rim, he's pretty good. Also pretty good percentage-wise. But the main reason he got here is because no one can get to the rim like LeBron can. Like, I think we can all agree that no one can get to the rim better than him. Moving on to shot creation, I have James Harden because, I mean, even though he's taken on more of a playmaking role in Brooklyn, we still have to give him credit because he's one of the best, if not the best, ISO player. I actually think he is the best ISO player in the NBA when he needs to be. Step back three is legendary. He can drive past you. He can do anything. He has no issues at all creating his own shot. In fact, he's expected to do that. And he's excelled at creating his own shot throughout the past few years. He's by far the best, well, not by far, but he's definitely the best shot creator since he literally has no issues doing it, and he's pretty much relied on to create his own shot. At least he was in Houston, but he probably still will be a little bit in Brooklyn right now. Moving on to playmaking, this is interesting, but I have Nikola Jokic because he may not be leading the league in assists right now. Harden is, I think. But he's probably the most skilled playmaker, and he's probably the best passing big man of all time, or at least he will be when he retires. He's such a skilled passer, one of the highest IQs in the NBA, and he's just an incredible passer. And he is by far the best passing big man in the NBA. He's the best passing big man in the NBA by a mile. And honestly, he's the best passer in the NBA. The Nuggets offense heavily relies on him and his playmaking, and the offensive rating is much better with Jokic on the floor versus him off the floor. I think it's an easy pick to give Jokic playmaking and passing. Ball handling goes to Kyrie. He's the second best ball handler in NBA history, in my opinion, right behind Allen Iverson. His handles are just insane. One of the ones that doesn't really need much of an explanation. Moving on to perimeter defense. Hot take coming in 3, 2, 1. The best perimeter defender in the NBA is Durant. I know there are probably more skilled defenders than him, but he's just like insanely good at defense. The way he locked up Harden last year in the playoffs, the way he loves to go at NBA guards and stuff, he's just so good on defense. He doesn't get enough credit. Like, he gets a lot of credit for his defense, but I still don't think he gets nearly enough. Like, man is insane at defense, and he's a big hustler too. And he has that defense mentality. He wants to go out there and lock you up, and he does a great job of that. Of course, there are other great perimeter defenders like Kawhi Leonard, like Marcus Smart, like Ben Simmons. The list could go on. But when you break it down, I think Lou Dort has Defensive Player of the Year potential, and he does not get nearly enough credit for what he does on the defensive end, his defensive impact on a team, and just straight up how good he is at locking his opponent down. Moving on to post defense, I have to give it to Rudy Gobert. Of course, there are great post defenders like Anthony Davis and Giannis, but the thing is they're very versatile defenders, and we have to go strictly post defense, paint defense. Who's the best at holding down and protecting the paint? And that goes to Rudy Gobert. His defensive impact is just insane, and the Jazz defensive rating is miles better with him on the court versus him off the court. And Rudy Gobert, and the thing is, like, he has to be a good post defender just because that's his role on the team. And he's a horrible perimeter defender, but when he gets in the post, he's an incredible rim protector, incredible rebounder. He's very strong. He just has every tool to be the best post defender in the NBA. And in terms of general defense, I have Giannis because, like I said, he's a great post defender, great rim protector, but he can also defend pretty well on the perimeter. And although by eye test he's not the best defensive player, I still think him being the defensive player of the year last season gives him an edge for this category. And the advanced metrics favor Giannis, but I'm not a much of an advanced stats guy, to be honest, but it's something I do have to bring up. But Giannis is probably the defensive player, in general, best defensive player. Moving on to basketball IQ, like I mentioned earlier, it goes to Chris Paul. He's an incredible decision maker. The game is just very slow for him. He's constantly making good decisions and very smart plays. He's a very creative player. There are many players with very high basketball IQs in NBA history, but he has the highest one. Just for I swear, literally every game, you can spot smart play after smart play after smart play, and you're just in awe of just how much he knows the game of basketball, just how smart of a player he is on the court, and it's super impactful to all the teams he plays for. Big example, the Thunder last season. Okay, without Chris Paul, that team is not nearly as good. The team didn't change a whole lot from last season to this season, but they're missing Chris Paul, and they're one of the worst teams in the NBA. Technically, yeah. And yeah, you can see that impact. And he's actually doing pretty well with the Suns, and that leadership is showing with the Suns record because they are doing very well. Moving on to dunking, I have Zach LaVine. He is a huge lob threat. He is a great creator. He can also get to the rim extremely well. Super athletic. It doesn't really need much of an explanation. LaVine is just an incredible dunker. He throws down. He can jump. Man's got bounce. Okay? He can jump. He's just an incredible dunker, great at getting to the rim. He's a force to be reckoned with at the rim. Moving on to off-ball play, I have Stephen Curry. Kind of makes sense. I mean, he's more of a ball-dominant player, but the reason why it's so hard to guard him is part of it is because he can literally shoot from anywhere, and he's an incredible ball handler, and he can score from all three levels, great playmaker. So with the ball in his hands, he's incredibly hard to guard, but without the ball in his hands, he's constantly moving, coming off-ball screens, moving on the perimeter, cutting, spot-up shooting, you name it. He's doing everything he can to get that open shot off ball. So if you're defending him, be prepared to give full effort with him having the ball in his hands and without the ball in his hands. Stephen Curry is definitely the best off-ball player in the NBA, even though he's a very active on-ball player, which is actually interesting. Moving on to rebounding is Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is one of the top rebounders statistically, and he led the league in rebounds last year and has many rebounding titles. He's just an incredible rebounder. He's very strong post presence, and nobody can rebound just quite like Drummond. He's already an all-time great rebounder. Moving on to shot blocking, I have Miles Turner. Keep in mind, there's a difference between being a good post defender and being a good shot blocker. Shot blocker is just literally what it means, just blocking shots, but post defense is a little more variety than that. It's blocking shots, it's just protecting the rim, being able to defend strong bigs down low, being able to defend the pick and roll well, just holding down the paint. And shot blocking is just a small part of post defense, but it is still a big category. And the best shot blocker in the NBA is Miles Turner. He's leading the league in blocks right now, and I think just his rim protection is just next level. He's always out there blocking shots, and the Indiana Pacers have a great defensive rating with him on the floor, and he's the defensive anchor for them. And the Pacers are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, and you wonder why. Because Miles Turner is just an incredible shot blocker. I honestly think he has a good case. If he can keep up the pace with shot blocking that he has right now, then he can win Defensive Player of the Year, if I'm being completely honest right now. Moving on to stealing, I have Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons led the league in steals last season. He's just great at stealing the ball, one of the best two-way players in the game right now. He's a pretty smart defender. He's a very versatile defender, can literally defend from the 1 to the 5, and just great at stealing the ball. Pretty good off-ball defender as well, so it kind of makes sense. Moving on to offensive dominance. So this isn't just in general, like how dominant of an offensive player are you? This takes into consideration scoring, shooting, playmaking, and ball handling, shot creation, everything on offense. And that goes to Stephen Curry. 1,000%. He is an incredibly impactful offensive player. He's practically carrying the Warriors this season. I mean, the Warriors have good assets, but no one is on near the level of Curry. And he's very impactful towards that team's success. Best shooter of all time, incredible scorer, incredible playmaker, incredible off-ball, incredible ball handling, incredible IQ, incredible... Well, you get the point. He's just an incredible offensive player. Moving on to defensive dominance, I have Giannis. Giannis is the most dominant player in the NBA right now, and it really shines on the defensive end. As I mentioned earlier, he won Defensive Player of the Year, and I think that grants him the most dominant defensive force in the NBA right now. And we are down to our last two categories, and my first one is clutch, like who's the most clutch player in the NBA. And I'm going to have to give it to Kawhi Leonard. I think Kawhi is an incredible clutch player both in the regular season and the playoffs. He's always like a very reliable player down the stretch. You need a bucket, he's got it to you. But just a quick thing, a lot of people will point to Game 7 last year. Yes, I get it. Kawhi Leonard choked big time. But also, he actually played pretty well, like, in general, like, throughout the playoffs, and was hitting many clutch shots. And in general, he's just super, super reliable in the clutch. If you look at the Toronto Raptors in 2019, they were constantly relying on him in the clutch. And I can only think of, off the top of my head, like, one example in the regular season where he just completely choked. Just one. And the rest, he came through, and he's super reliable in the clutch. So that's why he's probably the most clutch player in the NBA right now. And our final category is playoff performing. There are many great playoff performers in the NBA, but I'm going to have to give it to LeBron James. LeBron's playoff performing is kind of interesting because you have some people who say he's the best playoff performer of all time, and then you have some people who say he's just straight up a bad playoff performer and he's kind of a playoff choker. I'm not a LeBron sexual, okay? I just think that his playoff performing is great. He's always playing well in the playoffs, at least for the most part throughout his career. He has played great in the playoffs and just doesn't get enough credit for it. And like I said, like it's an interesting case because you have some people who overrate LeBron's playoff performing, but then you have some people who just don't give him credit for it. I want to give him credit for it. I think he definitely is a great playoff performer. He's not the best playoff performer in NBA history, like that's for sure. But in terms of all the players in today's NBA, and that there are a lot of great playoff performers, especially a lot of great young playoff performers. Quick side note, there's a lot of great young playoff performance right now. There's Nikola Jokic, there's Donovan Mitchell, there's Jason Tatum, there's Jamal Murray, there's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, there's Luka Doncic. There's a lot of great young player performers in the NBA, and I think the future is very bright. But the best player performer in the NBA has to go to LeBron for me, although that is very close. So that wraps up today's video. And make sure you subscribe, leave a like, let me know what you think, leave a comment, let me know what you think of this video, and with that being said, always remember, clutchness forever.